And it's because of these individuals going to be up here tonight talking about a lot of things in regards to the educational component that's been happening, or is happening, matter of factly, as a result of policymakers' decision that's impacting education locally as well as statewide. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and get started. And I really want to say thank you for your time and your patience for that. Before we do, I want to thank those, special thank you to the City of Gainesville's Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department. They co-collaborated with putting on this event and hosting us, and we want to say thank you. And I want to give can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I just want to give a personal acknowledgement to Yvette Carter and also to Kara Velasquez Richardson and her staff. Absolutely. So I wanted to make that acknowledgement known. For those that do not know, my name is Broderick Johnson. I serve as the president of our local FAMU Alachua County Alumni chapter. Also a graduate. I guess that requires me to be a part of the chapter. And also, like I said, a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I'll be serving as this evening's moderator for this event, and want to tell you a little bit about the purpose of this event without prolonging it for the start time. We're here to address, myself along with this distinguished panel here, a lot of the current issues and things that have been decided upon decision makers in Tallahassee, which is impacting the education. The individuals that are assembled here have a vast amount of expertise, insight, professional capacities through the educational field, and you'll find out this panel here is very diverse. Everyone has their own unique niche, and I think they're going to provide us with an educating opportunity this evening. Within the current school year, there have been a myriad of policies and changes to the educational structure that have been implemented, and now educators must walk a fine line, be very cognizant of the teaching material and verbiage being utilized within the school setting. This in turn has placed severe restrictions on what students can now be educated on and what teachers can teach. So this is something very brand new. It's a movement, so to speak, in terms of those individuals that have their own particular agenda. And from that, so we're going to talk about some vast amount of things with that. Just a couple housekeeping things. You may agree to disagree, whatever the case may be with this panel, because they're speaking from their own opinions. We do not have no pre-structured, we need to talk about this, can't talk about that, don't second them. It's totally on them and their subject matters. So let's just make sure we be respectful in that manner and give them the due respect from their opinions and things of that nature. So let me introduce these fine young individuals up here that's serving as our panelists. My immediate left right here, Dr. Karji Scott. This young lady is the Executive Director of Strategic Planning and Innovation at Tennessee State University. She's the CEO. Rappers, we're going to be easy on her. She serves as the CEO and co-founder of the Education Equalizer Foundation, along with her husband, Dr. Curran Scott. She's a student leadership and development adjunct professor and author of You Are Accepted, How to Get Accepted into College and Life. She is passionate about increasing educational opportunities for students from diverse backgrounds. With over a decade and a half of higher education executive leadership experience, she has managed institutional strategy, streamlined processes, automated admissions decisions, incorporated cutting-edge technology to attract and retain top students at trade schools, traditional universities, and historically black colleges and universities. Her leadership has consistently exceeded recruitment expectations, resulting in record-breaking enrollments. Her efforts reflect a deep dedication to empowering students and advocating for equal access to education. She is the wife of Marine veteran Dr. Curran O. Scott, DDS, and the mother of two beautiful children. She also serves as a member of Jack and Jill America, Greater Bethel AME, and also the NAACP. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Karji Scott. And to her immediate left is Dr. Monica Monroe, Gainesville High School graduate. All right. Dr. Monica Monroe, like I said, was raised in Gainesville. She's a graduate of FAMU for undergrad and master's and got her doctorate from Nova Southeastern University. As a Tallahassee resident, she is a criminal justice professor, tenured professor, and has been teaching at collegiate level for 15 years. She's also an early childhood trauma expert and author, and recently developed a trauma-informed care curriculum that is taught to incarcerated men and women and used as a training tool for correctional and law enforcement officers, educators, social workers, child care providers, and nonprofit organizations. Her passion for the mental and physical well-being of women led her to becoming a community advocate for incarcerated women and mothers. She has worked with several politicians to bring attention to the need for prison reform and post-secondary education opportunities for returning citizens. This passion was recognized nationally when she was selected as a 2016 presenter for the TED Talk organization, and you can find that on YouTube, as a matter of fact. She's also a distinguished author of several books. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Monica Monroe. Next up, the male gentleman up here of the panel who accepted the call and accepted the challenge, Mr. Curtis Peterson. He is currently the principal of Caring and Sharing Learning School, located here in the city of Gainesville. Mr. Peterson's background. Mr. Peterson assumed his current position as principal at the Caring and Sharing School in Gainesville, Florida in 2008. And it would be remiss if I did not mention that Caring and Sharing was co-founded by the great Dr. Simon Johnson and also Ms. Bernie Johnson, who has initially started that movement, and their son has carried on that legacy today. While serving in the DeKalb County school system in Georgia, he was recruited by the board of the Caring and Sharing School to return to his hometown of Gainesville, Florida. In doing so, he was hired by the board and given a mission to take the school to higher levels by expanding buildings, increasing school numbers, improving reading, math, and science skills, and overall student performance. So I say to Mr. Peterson, check, 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 and check. And because I say that, because if you did not know, because of his accomplishments at Caring and Sharing under his leadership, Mr. Peterson and Caring and Sharing was a featured article in People magazine's January 2023 issue. They were interviewed, him and his queen, by Kelly Clarkson, the American Idol winner, on the Kelly Clarkson show on NBC back in February. So his record, like I say, the recognition is due, and it is well deserved. He also, over Caring and Sharing, led the entire county last year for the grading of test scores and achievement for the third graders, the entire county, including the public schools. All right, so educationally, Mr. Peterson obtained his bachelor's and master's degree in education from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. He holds an educational specialist degree in educational leadership from National Louis University. His past experience, he served in the following positions as a teacher and a dean for Alachua County School District, also in Sarasota School District, also in Pinellas County School District. He serves as youth sports coordinator for the Juvenile Welfare Board in Pinellas County, assistant principal at DeKalb County, Georgia, and he currently, as I stated earlier, he serves as the principal of Caring and Sharing Learning School. As an educator, Mr. Peterson values education and seeks out opportunity to help young people better themselves by overcoming obstacles and achieving success in the classroom and in their personal lives. All right? As Mr. Peterson is for his professional community affiliations, his National Forum for Black Administration, he sits as a part of the One Black Man Organization of Gainesville. He sits on the I Am STEM Camps Advisory Board, the Manhood Youth Development Foundation Incorporated Advisory Board to Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and he's also Masonic affiliated with the PHA. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Curtis Peterson. To her immediate left, excuse me, Mr. Peterson immediate left.
Okay, it's
Six.
safe now. In a safe place now.
Six, Miss Diane McGraw. Diane McGraw, Mrs. McGraw was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. She became a Florida A&M University Rattler, where she majored in business administration on top of being a full-time mother to 3 unique and talented children. Diane serves as a community activist, a professional realtor. She is the owner, entrepreneur of several group homes in Alachua County. She's a past president of Alpha Sorority Incorporated graduate chapter. Growing up in the church that was overseen by the last standing witness to Dr. Martin Luther King last Moments under the leadership of Reverend Samuel Billy Kyles made a significant impression on Diane and allowed her to become more knowledgeable about the issues that were concerning the African American community. Along with being a knowledgeable community member, she continues to stay up to date on the issues that are affecting the African American community by being the past president of the Political Action Committees, also an organization known as the 4As. And the 4As stand for the African American Accountability Alliance Incorporated, which was established in 2005 by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Rodney Long. You may know of him, and also a past representative, Mr. Edward Jennings. The purpose of the organization of the 4A is to bring together the black community and political leaders by addressing the issues that we see pertinent in our community. Some of the issues that have been addressed include education and a lack of support around our African American students and the decreasing numbers of African American educators, especially during early education. And I want to say that Ms. McGraw is a two-time elected school board member of Alachua County School Board, and she currently sits there now. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Mrs. Diane McGraw. Lastly, but definitely not least, this young lady right here. I don't know if she needs too much of an introduction, but we're going to do our best to give her kudos. But as such, Representative Yvonne Henson, she represents District 21. Representative Henson is a former educator, small business owner, and city commissioner. She is a double Gator graduating from the University of Florida with a bachelor's in education and master's in special education. For more than 35 years, Yvonne served as a teacher, counselor, staffing specialist, assistant principal, and retired as principal of Robert Russa Moulton Elementary School of the Arts located in Miami, Florida. In 2003, Ms. Henson opened to Child Start Learning Solutions, which is a supplemental service that bridges educational gaps for students in the education system. She served Georgia, Florida, and Louisiana. Representative Henson moved back to Gainesville in 2005 and was elected and served on the Gainesville City Commission from 2012 to 2015. During her time as the commissioner, she saw that more needed to be done. So what? 2018, she became the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Congress District 3. Although she was not elected, she was able to meet and see the needs of the people in District 21. This led to her continuing to fight and ultimately returning to the political arena to become the representative of Florida House of Representatives for District 21. Now, mind you, Mrs. Henson is a two-time elected representative for the district, so she's doing her thing. In addition to her political career, Representative Henson is active in her community. She has worked closely with the ACLU, Alachua County Democratic Executive Committee, Democratic Women's Club, the NAACP, her church, Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church, and she served 4 years as the national president of the University of Florida Black Alumni Association. She was initiated in 2014 by the Mu Epsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and she wears her pink, green, and 20 pearls with pride. Representative Henson has 2 children, Kamala and Ivan, and grandmother of 5 beautiful children. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you Representative Yvonne Henson. So without further ado, everyone, let's go ahead and kind of just jump right into why we're here, to address certain things. And like I said in the very beginning and said in the housekeeping rules, we have no particular outline of what they can or can't say for as far as retribution or anything of that nature. So we just want to have an open discussion here, and they're going to do their thing. So we'll open up with Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott, you have the microphone there if you want to choose. Dr. Scott, a couple of things. One, explain to those in the audience that what is it that the Equalizer Foundation does, first and foremost, and as a proponent of higher education, in your opinion, kind of give us some key components for students that are aspiring for higher education, those that may look at HBCUs as well in terms of preparation for that process for attending a secondary learning institution. So Dr. Scott, the floor is yours.
Yes, can you guys hear me? So thank you for the opportunity to serve on this panel, firstly. And yes, I am happy to share information about the Education Equalizer Foundation. So we began, you can't hear me? Okay. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this panel. and I am delighted to share information about the Education Equalizer Foundation. We've been in existence since November 2021. And our original goal, I just wanted to mentor 20 kids because I'm a Gainesville transplant. My husband brought me to Gainesville. He's a periodontist resident at the University of Florida when he graduated, but nevertheless. And that was my original goal, right? I have all this talent, I'm just sitting on it. I need to serve, right? Isn't that what God has called us to do? So that was my goal, was to help 20 students. Well, we ended up helping over 100 in the very first year of being in existence. Wow. And so, yes, and so our audience are middle through high school students, and we really wanted to help whoever needed the help. But it seems as though the majority of the students that have been sent to me are African American and are students who want to attend historically black colleges. We have helped students go to other colleges, not HBCUs. We had a kid get a full ride to Princeton University. We had a kid get accepted to the University of Florida. We, of course, had kids that are at FAMU. Of course, I wanted more kids to go to Tennessee State. But what we are in existence for is, like you had asked, we want to prepare students to have a competitive college application. And what we quickly realized is, here in Alachua County, you know, based on the students that I've helped, that need isn't being met. The guidance counselors, I don't know if they're sharing the information, and admittedly, I wasn't trying to point fingers or find out what was going on. I was just trying to solve the problem, right? But I did do some research, and I found out that the American School Guidance Counselor Association recommends a student to guidance counselor ratio of 250 students to one guidance counselor. But here in Florida, the actual ratio is over 400 students to one guidance counselor. And so when I found out that data, it just helped me to make more strategic decisions and double down and expand my original goal of helping 20 students to helping whoever is sent my way. And thankfully, we've been able to make that happen.
Thank you. Absolutely. Dr. Monroe is sitting right there next to Dr. Monroe is a professor that is currently actually at a HBCU. Give us your thoughts and opinions on the restrictions that have now been placed, actually on the limiting of educating kids about our African American history at a HBCU particularly, and also you give us your why and your why not in terms of the impact of the governmental side of that.
Okay, so are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
What about now?
Yeah.
A little better? Okay, and I'll just try to project my voice a little more. So, as Bodrick said, I've been a criminal justice professor for 15 years. And Florida is very different. I just moved back to Florida last summer from Virginia, where I was a criminal justice professor and department chair at a university in Richmond. So state to state, we know that policies are different, politicians are different, people are different, right? But no matter where you are, everything is about money and power. It's about money and power. That's the bottom line. You either have that power or you don't. You either have the money or you don't. And the ones with the money, they make the biggest decisions about everybody, whether you have money or not. So what is happening here in Florida regarding what we can and cannot teach and how much of it we can and cannot teach is very interesting, right? So I've never seen what's happening here anywhere else, but I do believe it's trickling to other states, believe it or not, a little bit at a time, but other Republicans, they're picking up on what the current governor is doing, and they happen to like it, okay? So what are we not able to talk about? Well, K through 20, which is from elementary through college, we can talk about things such as slavery. We can. So don't let anybody tell you, well, you can't teach slavery. That is absolutely not true. Yes, you can. But it's certain things you cannot talk about or mention during your delivery of those slavery lectures, right? So you can't give your opinion, okay? Slavery was about a lot of racism. You can't say that. Now, is that true? It's absolutely true, right? We know that. So what the current policy is, you just have to state the facts. And if that's all we can state, of course that's going to be a very small conversation, because the fact is slavery happened and slavery has ended, except when an individual is incarcerated per the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution. See, I just educated you on slavery. That's a very short conversation, but I educated you based on facts. Now, how much education did a student really receive by those 2 sentences? None whatsoever. But isn't that the goal, right? Because if you look at what is happening currently, right? If you look at what is happening particularly with African Americans, that is how I came up with my why and why not. What that means is, Bodrick told us that we had to send some questions to him about what we're going to talk about. And so I was trying to be sneaky. And so when my question is going to be why, Bodrick, and my second question is going to be why not. And so Bodrick said, well, can you expound on that a little bit, right? So I'm like, of course, Bodrick, right? So, but the why is this. Listen, that man is, the governor, that man is trying to make sure that he keeps people who look like him, his family, in power for the next generation, and generation after that. Right. And if you look at it from that perspective, that's what he's supposed to do. That's what we're all supposed to do. That's what the Hispanics are doing. That's what Asians do. That's what Mexicans do. That's what Jews do. Why are we doing that? Mm-hmm. Why are we doing that? So when you look at it from that perspective, I'm not mad at it. I'm not. Now, I'm not his friend either. I didn't vote for him, but I wasn't living here at that time. But had I lived, I still wouldn't have voted. But what I'm saying, I'm not mad at him for doing what he feels is necessary to ensure the future survival of his people. I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at us because after all these years of people doing that, why haven't we picked up on that lesson yet? Yes. We're the only community of people, and I'm talking about black folks. Now, if you want to call yourself African American, I get it. Right now, it's so many things. I just don't know which word is correct, right? But I'm black too, I'm African. Look, that's me too, okay? So I don't want to be offensive, but the bottom line is there are certain things we have learned throughout the years. Unity is not one of them. We have not learned that, and that's what's killing us. Look, Malcolm X said this years ago. If you want to hide anything from a Negro, put it where? In a book. In a book. That shows us what? How powerful the mind is. How powerful the mind is. You can take a man's money and he's still a man, but you take his mind, that man becomes anything you want him to be. If you look at the way the body is made, everything we have can be replaced. If you lose your eye, you get another eye. You can't see out of it, but you got another one. You see what I'm talking about? We see all these BBL surgeries. Everybody getting other stuff bigger. Right? I don't know if it's better, but it's getting bigger. Okay? But guess what? The brain cannot be replaced. Look at what happens when you're brain dead. What does the doctor say? Pull the plug. It's over. The heart's still working. The lungs work. But when the brain is gone, so are we. So are we. So the quickest way to take control of a human being is to take control of his mind. And that is what the governor is doing. He's trying to dictate what is put into the minds of our children. All right? So if you take away the pertinent lessons of slavery, all of the other facts, then it's going to be difficult for you to show a black child what he or she can become tomorrow. You understand? So it's difficult for any child to retain knowledge if they're struggling to obtain that knowledge. And that is what teaching is about. You got to give them the knowledge. So what happens when you are being limited as an educator? Listen, Malcolm X always said this too. The first teacher of the child is the mother. The lesson that mother gives to the child is the lesson that child gives to the world. So if we're not teaching our children at home, in the community, in the church, then we are relying on teachers, many who do not look like our children, to provide education about who that child will be tomorrow. Nobody outside of our community is going to educate our children enough to compete against their children. That ain't going to happen. That's our job. That's our job. So now that the governor is saying what he's saying, listen, he's waking up a whole new movement, Vondry. Because now I'm hearing people from the church saying, well, the church is going to now start teaching about African American history. Let me tell you, that's not a flex. That's an embarrassment.
That's right.
Because that's what you should have been doing from the very beginning. A long time ago, that's what the church was. The church was about teaching.
That's right.
Now it's about preaching. Mm-hmm. You see, mm-hmm. The quickest way to turn somebody off is to do what? Preach to them.
That's right.
Hmm? So we got to get back to what the business of loving our children, caring for our children in a way where you're teaching them not just for today, but you're teaching them for tomorrow. That's not on the government. So why not? Why not do us the way he's doing us? Because we're easy prey. We're easy prey. He's not going to go to the Jewish community and tell them what they can and cannot teach about the Holocaust. That ain't going to happen. Ain't nobody going to do that. The Jews got more money than everybody, you see. But with their money, they also have power and influence. We have influence, and we think that's power. We're so fabulous in who we are as black people. Everybody want to look like us. They don't want to be like us.
Yeah.
Right.
See, it's a difference, brother.
Yeah.
So we can influence people. Now you got white girls wearing dreads and braids.
Right.
How cute. You see, that's influence. We don't have power. Power is what we need to make change.
Yeah.
Power makes people afraid of you, right? Not that you can influence somebody outside of the culture to rap like us. So what? Okay, you're making a couple of coins. You ain't giving that back to my community. But that's cute too. So the bottom line is this. We can talk about slavery in the classroom, but we can't hurt people's feelings. That's the rule. And if you do, that person, that student, can sue the university or the school, whatever school it is, right? And they can also sue the educator who hurt their feelings, right? Because you've triggered something. Well, I don't like cold weather. When the wind blows hard, that's a trigger for me. So I can't sue the Lord. You see what I'm talking about? Everybody's triggered by something. But it can't be my responsibility because I said something that triggered you and it's true. America is triggering to black folk. DeSantis is a trigger for black folks.
Yeah.
But we have to find a way to deal with our emotions. We can't sue anybody because our feelings are hurt. But imagine if we came together as a people, exercise the power that we have as a collective, not as an individual, pool all of our resources together and take that money. We can buy our own politician at that time. But in order to do something of that magnitude, You have to have the mindset that you're willing to forego it all for the love of our children. We have to do it that way. And my apologies, we started late because of me, right? I had to teach at the jail today, and it started raining, and the jail was on lockdown. And so when I heard them running down the hall, they're like, Dr. Monroe, we're on lockdown. And I'm like, you can't lock me down. I gotta go to Townhall. Bonch gonna be calling me soon. And so they let me out of the lockdown so I can be here. So I'm sorry. That's why we started late. So my apologies.
All right, thank you, Dr. Monroe. All right,
No,
all
you
right.
just set me up.
I'm sorry.
No intentions, Mr. Peterson, to, and like you say, have to follow Bernie back and all those good folks. So that's a good hard code. But also in all seriousness, though, Mr. Peterson, you know, under your leadership, your guidance at Caring and Sharing, has put that particular learning education as one of the premier charter schools, not just locally but statewide, because the national recognition itself that has garnered over Caring and Sharing says so. Like I say, people can say one thing and say another, but the awards say a different story. So as a leader over at Caring and Sharing, Mr. Peterson, and knowing that your test scores was the highest in the entire county amongst third graders recently, what has been some of your best practices that the teachers implement at Caring and Sharing that you feel as though has prepared those students for those exceptional test gains? And are there any kind of suggestions you can give for the education component that may can be implemented in the Alachua County public school system?
Okay, once again, thank you for having me on the panel and finally being recognized in my hometown. Basically, I'm a product of 75% of you people who I see in this room. And I'm a product of Vernon and Simon Johnson. And the other 25% that I see, well, let's go 20%, have lived through the effects of the other 75% that have influenced me. So when I came back to Gainesville, it wasn't a plan. I was going to be in Atlanta and would have been superintendent hopefully by now. And I got the phone call saying, we're getting too old for this. The game had changed. And the game changed because test scores, all of the other stuff that was coming down. School was started just to do good. So I packed my wife up and my family and said, well, we're coming back, but we're not coming back to Gainesville to fit in. We're coming back to take over.
All right.
And when we want to take over, we're taking over not the city, not the county, but the state. Because most people see the students who look like me and my little cousins, and that's what I see as I walk the halls. I see me when I was little, when y'all had me. And I wasn't all that nice and friendly. And I turned out okay. And I say, when I see those kids, I see me. And had it not been for some of you people in this room, and definitely my parents, I wouldn't be who I am. So my job is to take each one of those kids and make you better than I am. Because I stood on shoulders of giants, and you're gonna stand on mine. So as we play the game, and that's why I always say, I can play the game. The state says they want test scores, that's the easy part, in my opinion. And it's because of the way we teach. Some of the things that the state is saying not to do, we do them. Some of the things that they say, hey, you're not supposed to be successful because you're 99% African American, 65% socioeconomic, or whatever other numbers they want to put, they're all just numbers. Because I only see me and my little cousins running around the hallway. So what I say is, we're not going to be great because you say the way we look. That's because we are great, because of the way we look. And because we look that way, we teach that way. And the way we get around a lot of loopholes is because we all look the same. So a lot of the things I do on paper are not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to be in that neighborhood doing that great on paper. We're not supposed to be. The students aren't supposed to be scoring that high academically, and they're not supposed to behave the way they are. But they do that because that's what we expect them to do. They do that because that's what we do when we walk the hallways. They do that because of all of the people who are in this community that step foot on that campus and have an impact on those students who they may not ever know the impact that you've had. So we teach the history by walking around, living it every single day. Now, that's the easy part of being who we are. The other part is because they think Mr. Peterson just looked like this or whatever, that is not some research backed in a lot of the stuff that we do. We're ability group. Now, can ability group because they say if you're ability group, some people are gonna be offended because most of the kids are gonna look a certain way and they're gonna look different than the other kids. Well, we 99% looking like us, so we ain't offending nobody because we all gonna be in different groups. So the goal is at the beginning is, if this works, then why change it? So I challenge everyone when they say, hey, Mr. Peterson, what's happening now? Y'all gonna do anything different? For what? I want someone to come, show us that we're doing it wrong, and I'm gonna ask you, show me what's being right, and then let's compare. Because I'll take any kid that comes to that school and put them up against anyone in the state of Florida, black, white, green, yellow, red, whatever, because you're supposed to be the best because you're at caring and sharing. All of our kids are brainwashed. They all are brainwashed. They know that if you step foot on that campus, the fact that you're on that campus and you're one of that 350, you have to be the best. We do all of the talented 10, we do all of the talented 20, we do the forgotten 80, we do all of that. But the fact that you're here and your parents and grandparents and whomever made sure that you step foot here, we're gonna make sure that I can look them in the eye when I see them in the community, or when I see them in a meeting, or I see them at the grocery store. I have to look that person in the eye. And the benefit is, I know those people. And if I don't know you, within a couple of weeks, I'm gonna know who you are. And because I gotta look you in the eye, I cannot have done the very absolute best for your child and feel comfortable. So it's personal to us. It's personal. It's kind of like what we say Coca-Cola and McDonald's. No matter where you go at in the world, that Coke gonna taste the same. That McDonald's cheeseburger better to taste the chain or we're gonna have a problem. If those students come through caring and sharing and they go off into these middle schools and they go off into these high schools, you better act a certain way. You better get a certain test score, academics, or whatever. You better be the leader on campus. And if not, Mr. Peterson will come find you. I will step in, I don't care which campus you're on, tell the principal I'm on campus, and I will walk into that room and remind you where you come from. You came from caring and sharing, and all of these people are behind you. And if you can't do it, no one can do it. That's the pressure we put on the kids, and they step up to it. So they check themselves. I think we've had maybe one, if you want to call it a fight, in about 10 years. They don't argue with each other. When they do, like, well, how you picking at somebody and they're in the same room with you? So if they're in the same room with you, they're probably just as smart as you or the same academics as you. So we weed all of that out and we take all the excuses away. So when we put these things together and we ability group you, we then work and we departmentalize the teachers. Instead of teaching 5 subjects, you teach 2. And I tell the teachers, you better be the best math and science teacher in the history of math and science, because you will be the only first grade teacher of math and science this kid would ever have in their life. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then second grade can never be successful. And if you're teaching ELA and social sciences, you better be the best in the world, because they'll never have another second grade teacher again. You get one second grade teacher, you get one third grade. So we put that pressure on. We do a lot of extra that you wouldn't do somewhere else. My wife and I have done many of overtimes, weekends, holiday tutoring, before school tutoring. We also make sure that you don't come to Caring and Sharing to come to school. You come to Caring and Sharing to be a part of the family. So if something's happening in your home life, we're gonna see what's going on. Mom need a car, we're gonna call some companies and see what we can do. Mom having problems with some rent, call some companies to see what we can do.
Yes.
If dad locked up, and he just got out, he don't know who you are, when he get out, and I know him, he gonna introduce himself to you. And we've done that numerous times. So when you do that, the family start believing in you. And when the family start believing in you, they start doing best. People always ask me the secret to what I always say. And this is not just Karen and Sharon, this is everywhere I've already been. I've been in detention centers, worked in the jails, worked in alternatives, worked at not City and Linear, but 8 Wayne Jones. That was my whole life was middle school, and the kids of people who they said they did not want. If you came to me, you might not commit a crime, you committed the crime, where I used to be. And I used to tell all those kids what we learned in life, no matter where I was, in Atlanta, with advanced kids and CDC parents and VA parents, the whole nine. Every parent wanted the same thing. They wanted their kid to be better than what they were. They wanted their kid to do good. Now, that good was different at different levels, because you got to take them to where they are. But they still wanted that kid to be better. So we buy into that and we show them that. And if you were to sum up what in my life and my wife and us running around, it's hope. We just offer them hope. We say that if you can believe in us, if you believe in us and you're willing to bring your pride and joy to me, the baby that you birthed and everybody was celebrating and you were sending all these pictures out there on Facebook and having these gender reveals and doing all this other stuff, and you send that human being to me, that's pressure. That's power. And we have to change, and we got to mold you to go out and change the world. And that's what the kids say every morning. Who are you? And they say, we're Carrie and Sharon Learning School. Why are you here? To be the best. But why must we be the best? Because we got to change the world.
Yes.
We can't wait on somebody else.
Yes, right.
We got to change. And if you fall short, that classmate next to you going to put that pressure on you, because the kids have learned now that if you score well, nobody really pays attention to you, one kid out of 350. If an entire class scores well, people start in the district and the state start looking. But when the entire school scores well, then everyone gets these national awards from the Department of Education, National Blue Ribbons, National Title I's, or whatever awards they want to give us. I tell you, just do right, the awards will come. But award don't mean nothing. Your job is to do great this day so that you come back the next day and do even better. And if we just take those small days at a time, we'll change this world. So they know that they have to be the one. And I say, I don't care where you go. If you're in church, you better be the best behaved kid at church. If you at a program, you better be the best kid there is. And somebody better come over to you and say, ooh, where do you go to school at? And you better scream it out loud. I go with Karen and Sharon. And then you better say, because Mr. Peterson is crazy. And he will come find you my success. So that's the secret, is we believe high parent involvement, high students' expectations, and the parent, students, and the community working together. It's not a secret. You go to any school, you go to these parochial schools with all of this money. They don't want the parents in the front office, there's so many of them in there. Like, when I was up in Atlanta, don't you work, ma'am? Because they want to come volunteer. So the key is getting our people to believe in their neighborhoods and their kids that their feelings are just as great as someone else, that their feelings matter. That's the secret, is offering hope. Because when you don't believe that your feelings matter, then you stop caring. But hope is a dangerous thing. Hope and resilience changes the world. So I'm just glad to finally be noticed here, because I get noticed everywhere else. Like I said, I think maybe if I was a little more light-skinned, and maybe I had some UF behind my name, maybe some folks pay attention. Because what we do is just what we do. And it's not easy, but you gotta wanna believe to do it. And most places aren't vested in the need to do it. We're a charter school. I'm only as good as however many kids in our building. So each day, You prove to me that we did our best job by returning the next day. When I was in the traditional setting, you don't get that. Whatever's on for me, that's what's coming for me. And I don't care how mad you get and what you do, you're gonna be back tomorrow. But in the charter school, those numbers matter. Any day, 50 kids can leave. And that's why we have to say, we're PR folks. We have to sell them on the product that we gave them was better than any other product in the world. And if they were to go somewhere else, they would be liking that product. And that's just what we have to do. And that product just happens to look like us, and we break all stereotypes. Now, I was never part of segregation. But from what I heard, most folks were doing a little better because they were expected to do better. You're not gonna act a fool. You've gotta be the best, and not only do you have to be the best, you have to be even better in spite of. And somewhere we lost that be better in spite of, and just say, well, we just can't be better and accept it. But when you step out with us, you gotta be the best because you at caring and sharing. And that someone touched you like me, who was touched by people like you. And that's real simple. But if you can do it elsewhere, you can repeat it. But people always say, can you take it to other schools? I say, unless you're gonna reinvent me, my wife, and the teachers who work at Caring and Sharing, who really honestly care. Now, they have teachers who care at other schools, but do you have the entire program built on we care and we matter, and I'm vested in this little boy who looks like me being successful? And when you have a choice of saying, I don't care if they matter or not, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Before you start, Mr. Peterson, many of you all may have heard 350, that's the current student enrollment at Caring and Sharing. So, Mr. Peterson, can you tell us how many students did Caring and Sharing initially start with?
30 on Lake Road, and then 98, and then when my wife and I got here, we were probably at about 150. So that was about 2008. With the school, of course, most of us know, started on Lake Road in the projects in the little two-bedroom apartment that they refurbished. Then the other catch is that we know the stories in People Magazine and Kelly Clarkson and all that, they took their own money. And a lot of you that are in this room were part of that meeting when they were meeting and saying, what can we do? Same as a question. Retired educators, what can we do? And at that time, 1998-ish, Governor Bush at that time started charter schools. Now, I tell people all the time, you have the answer. You don't like what's happening somewhere, you have the answer to leave and go somewhere where you have input. So that's why I don't feel sorry for people who be running around some places and they're talking about my baby can't read and my baby can't do this and that. Why you keep going back? So in 1998, they started the charter school and folks came. And it wasn't always because we were guilty. We know that. If too many of us get together and we're in one room, it can't be good. We know that. You know that. Just because of who we are, y'all can't be that great. They were told many a time, too many of y'all, you know, the behavior, ain't nobody gonna be academics. And then slowly it started changing. Because if we ain't even believing in our own kids, and just because we in our mindset see a whole bunch of black kids and people who look like my cousins, and we say y'all ain't gonna be good because y'all look like that, we're talking about your grandkids, or your neighbor's grandkids, or your preacher's kids. That instead of saying how bad they're gonna be, why not just push in and make them great? Yes. So now, like I said, we're up to 350 and counting, and there's a lot of other talk that's out there, but I ain't hard to find. I ain't hard to find. If they got something to say, they can come talk to me, but I'm not hard to find. Now, I'm not gonna go beg nobody for nothing, because we 350 and kind of doing all right. But if you offer some buildings, if you offer some space, who knows? Who knows? We ain't hard to find. We 1951 South East 4th Street. Been there since 2000. If you want to find us. If you want to find us.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. McGraw, what you want to talk about? No, I got a question. You've always been a big proponent of education, academics. I know one of your platforms when you're initially running for a school board position was how we can address the achievement gap. How can we bring in those students and close those numbers that are so significant at the time in comparability to non-black students. So if you can expound on the issue of the achievement gap and the test scores and give us your opinion on ways to improve it. And I know, unfortunately, we had a spike in gun violence here over the past year or so in our local area. And just kind of see how gun violence can kind of tie into the educational component as well.
All right. One of the first things I would say, and as Mr. Peterson said earlier, words matter. Words matter. Yes, yes. And returning to the board, what I saw all the years, many of you all know me, I've been volunteering in schools since 1992 when I arrived from Florida Agricultural Mechanical University because I could not believe what I saw in our schools. And one of the things that I saw that really, really bothered me was the lack of expectations. If I don't believe that children can learn, then guess what? And that pattern continued. It continued and it continued. And finally I said, somebody needs to run that's not afraid. Because our district has been a well-nepotized, it's nepotism. Everybody knew everybody, everybody was friends with everybody, and nobody was going to, the good old boy, nobody was going to speak up or say things because they were working in fear. They were working in fear. And so where we are now in 2023, one of the things when I look back on the 2022-2023 school year, I can say I was happy to hear that Mr. Andrew, our superintendent, had implemented the principal turnaround. Because the state came in years before and said, hey, you all need to get principal turnaround, meaning somebody is decentralized from the district. You're going around as a team and you're checking. You're looking to see what's being done and happening in those classrooms. Holding people accountable. That has not happened in so many years. And so this year, and I'm excited, I've been speaking all day about school, but I spoke earlier about CTE, but I'm excited because right now for the 2022-23-24 school year, we have a new chief of instruction and curriculum, Ms. Roll, who's talking to principals. And her message is courageous leadership. This is no more you going into your classroom and saying, this is a directive, from the district, so you all do your best. No. We are now going to put a team together. We're going to be collaborating with the University of South Florida, who's going to come in and work with professional development, work with instruction and curriculum, behavior. They're all looking at attendance. They're all going to work as a team to create a multi-tiered service of support. And so, especially when you're being monitored, many of you may not know that not only are we looking at state improvement schools, when they talk about the SI schools, we're looking at all of our schools. Because even though a school may be an A or B in the district, the problem is the subgroups. You still had your kids with disabilities, you had African American, your minority students who were not getting the services. The school is an A or B, but a subgroup is still an F. There's something wrong with that picture. And when we sit back and we say nothing and we allow that to continue to happen, it's the people who look like you and me, the majority of us in the room, we're the ones for the longest. We've been talking about the achievement gap, 70-20%. Does that make sense? And so now, you do have new leadership that is hired a different group. Sometimes you gotta sift people out like wheat. And I know that's why I say embrace the change. A lot of people, as she said earlier, fear. But one of the things that, and when you talk about moving the gap, the first thing I did as a school board member, that's why this year I said, what can I do different to make people feel valued? We have 4,000 some employees. So I did the choo-choo train. Choo-choo, all aboard, I'm board. Because when I went around and got on the intercom, not go from classroom to classroom, I got on the intercom in all the schools. I only have 3 more schools I need to make it to. But when I did that, you know how many texts and phone calls and messengers I got to saying thank you, thank you for coming, that we matter. When you make people feel valued,
Yes.
Right.
when you make people feel they matter, you can help to begin to move that gap. But if I'm always complaining, if I'm always being negative, sure, we all know the gap has been a problem. But also, this county has had 8 superintendents in 10 years. So you're not gonna close the gap when you keep 8, 10 divided to 8, every 1.5. We had new leadership. That's a problem. And so we can't be afraid. Transparent. I'm being completely transparent. Because it's important that we begin to understand that you need to be looking at, when we're serving, this is not about politics for me. This is about being a public servant. It has been a problem too long in this district. But now that people are starting to feel valued, and you have to look at not changing leadership all the time, because that's fear, the stability. And guess what? When the adults are living in fear, when the adults are always concerned, how does that affect the children who don't ask to come in the world?
Right.
And one of the things too is, you know, when I first came in, I went to visit in December. I walked into one of our middle schools, and the behavior was so out of control. I got back in my car when I finished, and I said, Lord, making a joke to myself. I said, I need a cigarette, I don't even smoke. Because the behavior was so out of control. If your behavior is not under control, you can't get to the academics. And so one of the things, I came in and I created a program, wrote a program, you know, until we get our strategic plan completed. Enough is enough, because that is my background. You know, working with intensive behavior every day. It's important that we begin to understand that this behavior, kids are acting out for a reason. So that's why it's important to work with the whole family, as Mr. Peterson said as well. Because just last week, I had a parent who was so upset with me because I finally got her as a family to understand that we got to take these kids and do something else until you get yourself together as a parent. That's where we are. We now have 22 social workers in our school, family liaison. All these people have to be working together. And one of the things I did, I got a good friend of mine here, take these children in. And mother's gone to Phoenix House. That's a real, so when I talk about serving, this family, these kids, and they're doing better. Just in 1 week, these kids are doing much better because somebody else took them in. We don't have children that gave an opportunity. We've done this for me before years ago. But I want mom to get herself together. And this is with mom didn't have anything, didn't have any insurance. She kept saying, I worked it all out, got her down there, because I want to rebuild the family.
Yes.
But where we are with education now, we have to work with the whole family. All of this affects that achievement gap. And so until we begin, and this is hard work, and that's why since COVID, especially after COVID, the spirit of complacency has just been too much, too overwhelming. And so it's not just about, and that's why I make sure I meet with the superintendent twice a month. It was, you know, I couldn't say once a week. We have to meet because I need to let them know as the leadership, because we're governors, we're responsible for policies, but I need to let the person who's over day-to-day operations know what's going on. And so now that we're working with the whole family, now that you have new leadership that's being put in place in the district level, all of them are decentralizing themselves and going out into these schools every day. When the state came in just last week looking at some of our schools, they were happy that you had some improvement. And so now, just like you got Karen and Sharon, like, and I told them, it's important as a school system. You all heard me talk a lot about marketing, you know, because we do have competition. Because people will not always say anything, but if their children, the most precious commodity to a parent are their children, the children. And so if my child is coming home complaining that every day and I'm not happy, guess what? I'm gonna look at doing what? Going somewhere else. Because if I can get on the waiting list for Karen and Sharon, I'm going. Like he said, all of the hard work that we do, why are we not partnering? We got Duval Elementary. We have some empty schools. Why are we not partnering? Give them a contract to come in and help. Because we're so many years behind since COVID, it's going to take a whole collaborative effort and team of folks to make sure we can close this gap. And so if somebody's doing it right, you don't have to create it. You know, you can say, hey, let's partner. Let's go out and collaborate. Show us what we're not doing. And that is a part of what we have to begin to do. And I would say this year for the 23-24 school year, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because people are working behind the scenes hard every day. And unfortunately, some of these people are working overtime more than others because, like I said, when changes occur. We've had new leadership since July 1st and change in district leadership, and you have to find things that have not been working, things that have not been done. People are working overtime, staying at 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, because we want to ensure progress. When you all voted for us, no more talking, you wanted to make sure we began to put the right fit of people in place to ensure change can happen so that we can have better outcomes for all of the students here in Alachua County.
Thank you, Mrs. McGraw. Very passionate, as all of you all are. This young lady, this is Representative Henson. She is what I call, I was watching some of the telecasts last year when she was what I call in the pit. But in Tallahassee, they call it being on the floor. Very passionate and advocate for a lot of the things, and was speaking against a lot of the proposed ideologies and policies that individuals wanted to implement, which is kind of where we're at right now. From a governmental standpoint, she represents this area, District 21, exceptionally well. Hopefully she can continue to charter that fight. I know it's a hard fight, especially when she's fighting against the machine. It's definitely fighting against the machine. So from a legislative governmental standpoint, Ms. Henson, representative, can you kind of fill us in from a standpoint of where's the thing set in Tallahassee, from what you've seen unfold to where it's at now and what you can potentially see happening in the future if some things don't change or get addressed?
So it's been a lot already, and I did say it was a diverse panel. It is extremely diverse. It's been a lot of information. So let me just throw it out there. It's a lot. And I can't tell you everything, but I want to tell you the things that prick my heart. In the 2022 session, the terms started emerging like CRT. And that wasn't the first. I mean, I took my first seat in 21 when HB1 came out with the protest bill and the anti-this and the anti-that. But we started 2022 with CRT. And that was the stepping stone for what followed. Half of us didn't even know what CRT meant. We learned it was an anti-slavery education or any other systemic racism education that may make other people feel uncomfortable. We weren't sure of that. Some people thought it had something to do with law school. We weren't sure of that. But, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. We witnessed the legalization of book banning, especially African American authors and African Americans. Stories about African Americans. I don't see African American parents doing that though. I mean, they have a right to. The Parents' Bill of Rights gives all parents the right, if they're uncomfortable with a book, to write a letter complaining about the book and get it banned. One parent can do that for the whole school district. You need to do it too. You need to ban Shakespeare. I mean, start hitting them where they're hitting us.
Yeah.
You can ban books too, just do it. And let's start reversing that curse. But after that, the Stop Woke Act. I don't know how this governor heard about woke. I don't know how he learned about woke. I don't know who told him about woke. But we've been woke way back before Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King woke me up. I don't know about y'all, but somebody woke him up and told him about woke. And I wish I could meet that Uncle Tom. But they filed a bill, the Stop Woke Act. It's now a law. It is the law of the land in Florida. And I'm just going to review a little bit of it, the black section, because although you think they didn't attack anybody else, there's a section in here on the Holocaust and other people. So, subjecting any individual as a condition of employment, membership, certification, licensing, credentialing, passing an examination, to training, instruction, other required activity that espouses, promotes, advances, inculcates, or compels such individual to believe any of the following concepts will constitute discrimination based on race, color, sex, national origin under this section of the law. So, members of one race, color, sex, national origin, yada, 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 cannot say that one is morally superior to another. That's a good thing. Nobody's morally superior to anybody else. That's how they get us started. And then they say, by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, national origin, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. What are they doing? They're refuting conscious and unconscious bias. Have you heard of that? That is evidentially based. That is not something, that's not an opinion. Conscious and unconscious bias is a fact. But now the law says we can't use it. An individual's moral character or status as either privileged or oppressed. So they're erasing that concept. Now we all know there are privileged people, and it ain't us. Let me say, I heard Chris Rock say to a group of people one night, white people in the audience, say, "You don't want to be me, and I'm rich." Because of your privilege. Well, members of one race, color, sex, or national origin cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to their race, color, or otherwise, by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin. What this section is doing is contradicting systemic racism. And we know that exists. There's systemic racism and there's systemic discrimination. Some places more than others. But it exists. And to call it non-existent in a law defeats the purpose. Well, there are other sections of this. Former slave owners, former Confederate members, we cannot hold against them. You know how we started taking down these Confederate? You know how we started taking these Confederate names? I think that's what stirred this up. Now it's a law that we can't do that anymore. It's in the law. Okay. And how about adverse treatment to achieve diversity, equity, and inclusion? Now, I don't know that we ever adversely treated anybody. We're just trying to get our share of the pie through diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's been eliminated. You cannot use DEI anywhere in the state. Not anywhere in the state. No state institutions, no state agencies, no state governments. You cannot do anything based on DEI for salary, for training. You heard some of the things I said at the beginning, for membership, for certification, for licensing. None of those things can you use DEI to accomplish. Other things, such virtues as merit, excellence, hard work, fairness, neutrality, objectivity, racial colorblindness, or racist, or sexist, or were created by members of a particular race or national origin to oppress members of another race. They're trying to say that we can't accuse them of creating systems that oppress us. Although they exist. Redlining exists. Segregation existed. I lived through segregation. So these things exist, but they make them feel so uncomfortable to talk about it that they want to erase them from the law, from the books, from everywhere they existed, so that one day, none of this will ever exist. And our children will believe the new law. And they're talking about indoctrinating. They're calling what we're doing indoctrinating. But now they have their own indoctrination curriculum. I don't know. I'm sorry? Prager University curriculum. If you got any PragerU in your school, be sure you get your parents to write a letter saying you don't want your kids exposed to that. Because it is indoctrination of the other kind. Oh, Lord. And then came the College Board's introduction of AP, African American History. You heard about that. And the governor's rejection of it. Keep in mind now, African American history is already a state mandated course. It was mandated long before he got elected. It was mandated while I was a school principal. So here we are speaking of a proposed AP course. According to the governor, it had no educational value. But what it did was directly contradict this stop woke act. The governor pointed out examples of topics included in the course while defending the decision to ban it. According to him, those topics include queer theory. It was black queer theory. I say it affects the LGBTQ community. It was intersectionality. I say as it relates to systemic racism and discrimination, which they really want to wipe out of history. But systemic racism still exists. And abolishing prisons. Now, you know they didn't have abolishing prisons in that curriculum. The topic itself was not abolishing prison. It was a discussion of mass incarceration, which a bright kid ought to be able to understand. Mass incarceration is another form of lynching. And mass incarceration, you know who's being incarcerated. And we don't want bright kids to know about that. We definitely want our bright kids to know about it so they can start finding solutions for it. But they don't want that. So these are some comments I got online because I don't want to make my own other than the ones I've already said. When you try to use black history to shoehorn in queer theory, you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes. That's what DeSantis said. Now, I know we have our own feelings about gay and lesbians and queers, but don't act like they never existed. Because they go back to way before we even knew what to call them. We had some other names. And they exist in everybody's family somewhere down the line.
That's right.
One of the reasons that this AP African American Studies course is necessary, according to this professor, is to educate young people in a holistic way about the history of African Americans, including those who identify today and in the past, as LGBTQ, said E. Patrick Johnson, who is a dean of Northwestern's College of Communication, and one of the scholars whose research on Black queer studies has been named in the rejected syllabus. DeSantis and his administration should realize that writers such as James Baldwin and Audre Lorde, whose work is listed as a concern in the Department of Education document, are the progenitors of what is now Black queer theory, Johnson said. Let me just tell you, we've got a fierce Black queer woman in the legislature that fights for your justice each and every day. And she starts every sentence out by saying, I'm the first and only Black queer in this house. So I speak from experience. And she gets respect. She gets respect. My question is, if they can respect her, why can't they respect the others? It would be best that those who are not scholars of African American history to leave the question of what should and should not be included in that history to those scholars who said. Well, in a statement from the college board, they were very silent at first. Everybody wondered why they were so silent. And they issued a statement that the college board did not directly address Florida's decision to ban the course, but instead said that revising course frameworks is a normal part of developing a new AP course, and that course frameworks often change significantly as a result. However, they changed the course, they changed their own course, and they started pushing back against Florida. So they left the course the way it was, and Florida kept it banned. I do want to tell you though, there are people interested in this course. It's all over Facebook, and here it is. Somebody's teaching it, and they're sharing it all over Facebook, and people are signing up for it. They're getting a credit for it. So like the lady said, what's your name? Dr. If they won't teach it, we have to teach it ourselves. I brought that because anybody interested in taking that course can just scan that QR code and they can sign up for that course. So it's just an elective, they say, but it sounds like it's some good topics in there. They want to talk about history before we came over on the slave ships. I think our children need to know that we have former kings and queens and princes and builders. That we still have those skills. And that we brought them with us. And that's why they brought us here. Because we were skilled people. They didn't teach us any skills. We brought those skills here with us. However, they organized this African American history work group to circumvent a task force that was already in place. And they created some standards that had to be taught. And these standards included slavery was beneficial to the slave. Now, they didn't teach us anything. We didn't get our trades from here. We brought them from there over here. That's why we could build the White House and other things all over this world, all over this country. We are the builders. We are the kingmakers. It was us, not them. Yet they want to deprive us of that. And the other thing they had in these new standards is that massacres that occurred around this country, like Rosewood and Ocoee, that blacks committed as much violence as whites. So we are fighting back all up and down this state and land. The doctor said the other states are piggybacking on what we're doing here. So this mess that we're doing here is triggering other conservative states. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we got to stay woke. We got to stay engaged. We cannot let this go on. And this is the propaganda they use to should talk about this amongst their people. They got a woke document. I printed it in black and white, but it's red and blue. And this is their PR on stop woke. Woke they got as an acronym. The Stop the Wrongs, Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act will be the strongest legislation of its kind. Well, it is. It's in the law. It's in the law. They passed it. We didn't fight it, except for the legislators. But see, and I don't know that it would have made a big difference, but when the HB 999 hit, I've gone way off my script now. When HB 999 hit committees, y'all showed up in droves. Y'all couldn't even get in the auditorium. I'm talking about y'all black people. It was so many of y'all in the house, they couldn't get y'all in. We would call names, and it would take 20 minutes sometimes to find a person. Because they were attacking what? Well, they were attacking Black Greek organizations. They showed up in their pink and green, and their red, and in their purple, because they were attacking the Black Greek organizations. They were also attacking women's studies, and they were attacking some other things, but it was the Black Greek organizations that got y'all there. We got to do better.
Yes.
We got to come when they're attacking us. This is Black Lives Matter. Oh, Black Lives Matter was in that AP course, by the way. They didn't want that either. We've got to show up, and we've got some real issues. Now, you know, I fought like a black cat, and I got that Black Greek thing taken out. It's not in the law, but a lot of stuff got left in that HB 999. Yeah. FloridaChannel.org. The FloridaChannel.org must be where you've seen me, unless you saw me on Twitter or something.
That's why I saw you.
Okay, well, there were also some memes created of me fighting that Black Greek thing. I'm telling you, it was funny because I didn't know who did it, but there's like 4 different slides of me fighting this guy who's sponsoring this bill. But that bill, HB 999, attacked not just HBCUs, it attacked blacks on college campuses. Women on college campuses. Quite a few other things, but you know, we were the heavy part of this. So, stay woke, ladies and gentlemen, because this fight ain't over. And we start again next week. I don't even know what they're going to bring our way. But we got a lot of fight. Look, this Bill of Rights, you guys need to read that thing because you got rights too. Use them.
Yeah.
Use them. And pay attention to that PragerU curriculum because they're starting to teach your children that what they're doing is right. You don't want that.
Thank you, Representative Henson. As I stated in the very beginning, this panel is very, very diverse, and everybody brought their own special expertise from their respective fields, their respective backgrounds. This is the type of information that you just don't get collectively at one time. And I truly appreciate every one of them for committing to the call, committing to the opportunity to come and present and speak to this particular audience. And first and foremost, thank you for everyone that took the time out this evening to come and be a part of this particular town hall. What I'm hoping is that this particular information can be enough to generate dialogue, generate change, an opportunity. Like Representative Hinton stated, that we as a people need to be more proactive and be included in government's things. All right, don't let it come on your doorstep until you react and say, oh, now I need to do something. All right, be more involved in terms of students. We're sitting, like I say, student involvement on schools make a difference. I know Mr. Peterson is very, very passionate in regards to caring and sharing. I heard it, I've seen it firsthand, and the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
The results speak for themselves. Same thing with Dr. Scott and the Education Equalizer Foundation. Same thing with Dr. Monroe, her passion for fighting for criminal justice reform, fighting for the rights of women, fighting for the rights of all individuals that are being affected by what's going on. All right, same thing with Mrs. McGraw, her passion for fighting for those causes within the Alachua County public school system. We as a people got to work collectively as a whole to make this thing happen. And like I said, tonight's whole town hall purpose was to have a dialogue, have information presented. Now, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? So from this, we shall see. We're always looking forward to opening lines of communication, and it's good to see so many diverse people in the audience from different backgrounds in terms of their experience. A lot of educators out there, retired educators. A lot of retired educators, and I know quite a few, like I say, that, like Mr. Peter said, I can say personally, had a standing on their shoulders at one particular point in time. When I started out at J.J. Finley, Mrs. Wright was over there as well. So those particular individuals always definitely had an impact on myself as well. And before, yes, Ms. Peoples.
We have an opportunity for questions and Q&A session.
Yeah. We'll have to talk to you for a couple of questions. We don't want to extend it too late, but I just wanted to make a few comments there and everything. So we will have a couple of questions for those that want to address it with the panel. And prior before us closing out, Ms. Cherie Kelly, a representative from the city of Gainesville, will get a chance to come up and deliver us a message to you all before we get a chance to transition. And we have some refreshments for you over in the next room that you can, eat and take with you, or wherever, take some dialogue and interact a little bit. So we got two questions. Mrs. Campbell People, I take it you have one of those.
Dr. Scott, just to piggyback off what you said, both of my parents are retired guidance counselors. My dad started at Fort Clark in the early 70s, retired in 2000. The next black guidance counselor wasn't hired until 2013. My mom retired in the early 70s, or started in the 70s at Buholtz. When she retired in 2000, I'm not sure if they have one to date. There are several guidance counselor positions open, and I know I feel personally responsible for my daughter who only wanted to go to FAMU. And typically, I'm very engaged in her education. But I said, okay, things have changed, so let me rely on the guidance counselor. She only wanted to go to Florida A&M. Only. They told her to take the ACT, which she did. She did not get into FAM because she had to take the ACT with writing.
Right, yep.
We could even backdoor her to go in, although she had honors English. And by the time she did it all, it was too late. And because FAMU is so competitive, that she wasn't even going to be getting on a waiting list, and she had a 3.8 weighted GPA. So she had to go to Santa Fe first, then she transferred to TCC, and then she got into FAM as a transfer student. So I'm still mad at the whole process, because she never got the real FAMU HBCU expansion. She only wanted to apply to FAM. For Dr. Monroe, my daughter, her favorite class as a BSW, Bachelor of Science, her favorite course was African American history. She said she learned more about African American history than she ever had, and that was her favorite course, as well as a black course on criminal justice. She said she didn't know that half of those things even existed. So, for Mr. Peterson, he walks the walk. I was at Lincoln, and some of his students were in Lyceum who were not doing as well. I made a phone call from my office. I think he was there before I hung up the phone. So, and he talked to some of his former students who were, kind of gotten out of line, and reminded them that they were from caring and sharing and needed to conduct themselves. Not to put you on the spot, Ms. McGraw, but I work at one of those SI schools, and we only have probably 6 black teachers in the classroom.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just wondering, is Alachua County, because historically they have not done well with being intentional of hiring persons of color. Is that something else that's going to be like on the platform? I know that they used to say, well, we don't make that much money, but we don't make much more money than Tallahassee. So, now that the governor is increasing the incoming, he left us middle people alone. He need to increase us and reward us for staying.
And I would tell you, I'm not ashamed at all, because we're all just getting here, but I would tell you, it's in the works for some of the changes. I would tell you, Ms. Maria Eunice, who's now over HR, the person that's in chief of operations, she realizes there are not systems and processes in place. Things have to change. How we hire, we gotta look at that. The behavior, you know, if I could write up a behavior plan for this district, it would be for a whole year. Because we don't have that much time, but in 6 months, we got to change the behavior. Because for so long, you've had the same people for 20. It's like somebody's hit you upside the head, and after so many years, you get numb to it, and you've been accepting it. So now that you're trying to change a whole 40-year, 50-year system, you got people fighting and scratching. It's like Trump told people, fight, you better fight, you know, like heck. I'm gonna say heck. Because once you lose your power, that's it. And so there are conversations, because now your leadership is beginning to what? Collaborate, work together.
Right.
And that hasn't been happening.
And I was happy when you said Miss Roll's name, because that means she's led by a black woman.
That's right.
Miss Roll is a black woman. One of my
Well,
son's
you have quite a
favorite
few
former
African
teachers.
all of your high school principals are black except 3 now.
Right.
You know, Mr. Andrew has made some changes when it comes to leadership, but the problem is, leave the politics out of it, and
Right.
give a chance for the change to happen. Embrace the change and allow it to work. The problem, 8 superintendents in 10 years, that just makes my skin crawl.
Right.
And people keep fighting against that because I don't know if it's about power or what. One person, so that's not on the superintendent, I'll tell you that. That's on the board.
Right.
That's on the board. So we have to be, and moving forward, as I said, when I came back, I'm gonna be very transparent. Because if we're gonna save children, that's the only way we're going to do it, is when you make your decisions based on what's best for kids. Not all this outside talk, what's best for kids.
Can I ask her a question and follow up?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. You. So she was asking about black teachers.
Yes.
Is there something in the law that is preventing the school board from hiring more black teachers?
No.
Okay, so it's not legislation.
No.
Oh, it's within.
It's within, I'm saying.
Oh, that nepotism thing you're talking about.
Well, not just with nepotism, but it's the people. You have to have, so now, Maria Eunice, who just passed, we've had this conversation. Here's one of the issues. It has to be, you got a new deputy superintendent in place. They're having these conversations. But the other thing too, people watch us, they see us. What incentives? What incentive packages am I putting together to ensure, how do I make people feel? Am I feeling valued to even come to Alachua County? Those are all those things we have to look at.
Yeah, they're all factors. Plus, we're sitting at where University of Florida is. So a lot of times our teachers are coming from University of Florida. So it's not, I don't believe there's a law. I just think that a lot of our young teachers, we have half of our faculty is University of Florida students. Right.
And that's
Recent grads.
there again, that's because of the people that have been in the system for so long. That's all they see. Tunnel vision.
Right.
The problem has been this district has been tunnel vision as far as looking one way. Also, we gonna have to find a way out to. We can't. And to me, we didn't get elected to keep saying we have no money. What you have to do is start thinking outside the box and see where you need to cut. With our ESSA funds, we created $5 million, 40-some positions, but did those positions benefit children? No, that money could have been better utilized looking at other things that we could have been doing. I mean, we just got to call it what it is.
For Mr. Peterson, I'm going to kind of chime in.
Yes, just real quick, because we're always used as a what about, how come, and if they can, why not. I was asked years ago, Mr. Peters, how are you able to have so many minority teachers on your campus?
Right.
They asked me, I said, well, because I called up the FAM and I called the Bethune College of Education and said, who y'all got? And that was it. And they were telling me, well, they like to go to Atlanta and they like to go to Miami. I said, yeah, me too. I like to do that too. And I did Atlanta. I said, but the catch was I called. And at one time, we had an African-American male that taught every grade level, math and science on campus. So a kid had an African-American male from first grade at that time all the way through 5th grade. So that means half of their day they were African-American men. And at one point, we had probably about 50% of my staff were graduates of FAMU. And then we had about two people from Bethune at that particular time. So that's how we got. And that's all you gotta do is call up there. I said, if you go up there and you say, I'm gonna give $5,000 bonus to somebody coming up out of college, they're gonna come where it is, because I did. They gave me $1,000 to go to Sarasota, so I know if we give them $5, they'll come here. And that's all you gotta do. If you want them, you figure out how to get them.
That's right.
And with me, I knew that the best person who's gonna be sitting in front of my kids is gonna have the biggest impact. Well, I want them to reflect what my staff looked like. So that's what we did. So I told them that's all you had to do. I said, what your issue is, you have University of Florida, and most schools, when they get interns from UF, and they place them at strategic schools because they don't want them in certain areas because they don't want to ruin the teaching experience. So they put them at a certain place, and you usually hire who's already been an intern. That's your first line of hiring because you've already seen them. They did on-the-job training while they were interning. So your catch is where you get more interns from the HBCUs, and then that helps solve some of the problem. And the other catch was, well, the camels were mine. Guidance counselors way back then. So as I say, y'all the reason why I am who I am, so if I'm messing up, it's y'all fault. So the deal is, if you want them, you just go out and get them. And that's why I always say, hey, when you're talking about an achievement gap, I don't use the term achievement gap. Because in order for it to be the gap, I gotta think that you're better than me to begin with, and I'm trying to catch up with you. So with us, I don't care if you're black, white, green, or yellow. If you step foot on the campus, you're just gonna be the best. If you happen to be black, fine. If you happen to be Hispanic, fine. If you happen to be something, that's it. The fact that you're on my campus, you gotta be the best. And if we change that thought process of we gotta catch up with someone, then everything changes in our world. Because I don't think you're better than me, so ain't no gap. It's just that I gotta figure out how to teach this kid differently than I teach this kid, and I gotta figure out what makes me have to teach them differently. And if I don't even go to your neighborhood, I know I ain't gonna be able to teach you from your neighborhood. And that's the catch. We got folks who won't even go to these neighborhoods and stuff. So we just throw away that achievement gap away, and then we start woke out till we were never asleep. So we just gonna keep doing what we doing. But if you want more blacks, you hire more blacks. Go where they are.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. We have one more question. Yes, young lady.
I just want to thank all the panelists for your perspective, the wisdom, and insight. This was truly a wonderful night. My question relates to where the board is with its strategic planning process, and specifically, I wondered if school-based health centers have ever come up as part of the solution. Because what two of you talked about was really wrapping your arms around the whole family. We're going to deal with this child's behavior problems. Well, we need to know what mama's doing at home, right? And so one of the things that, one of the places I lived for a while was North Carolina. And they have these school-based health systems where, you not only get your vaccination, but when your kid is sick and they got social services, you need to apply for CMS, and it's kind of like that one-stop shopping because schools are already having to do all of that without the resources of social workers, guidance counselors. We pay an extra millage, so every school has a nurse. It seems like it might be the next logical step to meeting the needs of our children and their families.
Well, we are in the process. That's one of the things this board is doing now. We're doing a comprehensive strategic plan. We have Cardia as one of our consultants, so we're in the middle of that now. We're in the planning stage. We've had one meeting that we've attended, first time ever, where board members and administrators have been in the same room. And so that's where we are now. We have another meeting coming up soon this month. However, when you mentioned about the health, one of the things I hate that happened in this district is when we lost Head Start. When we lost Head Start, we were working with the entire family. The kids were coming in, the dental, health, physicals. And when we lost that, that was a huge loss. After 40 years, I was a community partner before I served for about 20-some years. When Ms. Cromwell was there and Ms. Williams, it was a big blow. We lost that. And so with losing that hurt our families. And like now, VPK is something I'm real big on as well, you know, because it starts early. But the conversation about health centers and those things, that has been brought up before in this district. But with our strategic planning, I'm looking forward to great change. Because we used to have, you know, you go to the school, you write down on a little notepad and talk about the 3 little words you believe need to be in part of the strategic plan. But this time we do, and I think the board, the current board, we're really serious about making sure that's a solid strategic plan, because without a plan, you're blind. But also, we're moving forward with implementing certain things because we can't wait. But Cognia is our consultant right now for that strategic plan.
Thank you, Ms. Yeah, Representative Hibbs gonna wrap it up for us.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on this question. When I was principal, and I'm talking close to 20 years ago, we had a full-service school. So my school, you recognize that term. My school was in a low socioeconomic term area. However, we were a school of excellence. We didn't have any real gaps either. But we had kids coming for the magnet from very rich homes. And then we had the kids coming from the neighborhood that had all these needs, and I had to figure out how to balance the act. I applied for a full-service school from the state, and I got a grant from the federal government to finance it. But we were able to do all the health care on campus for not only the kids, but for their parents and their families.
Yeah.
We did physical exams, we partnerships, we partnered with the University of Miami nursing school, the School of Nursing. They actually ran our center for us. They partnered with the medical school, and they brought a doctor in once a week. So we were able to do football exams for the kids who wanted to play athletics. A parent that might get sick and doesn't know why should come there. It was a real healthcare center. And then the rich kids. I mean, some of the kids from the affluent families. If somebody got sick, I heard a judge say, "Don't you have a clinic there?" So they started using the clinic too.
So can we get?
I'm saying it was 20 years ago. I have no reason to believe it doesn't still exist. And Diane, no, I'm willing to help.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Hibbs. Second panel question from the audience, Mrs. Rentz.
I was just going to comment on what you were saying, because at the University of Central Florida, we have that model, and it's called Community Partnership Schools.
Okay.
Our vision school is Community Partnership
I
Schools.
thought how a
There are gaps, because we realize, I work with the center, we realize that there are needs in our school district still have, even though we have that model. As you heard from Mr. Peterson, I really feel like we need the diversity of our parents more involved. And so even though we have those wraparound services or those full service model schools, you need the trust of the community to take advantage of those programs. And so oftentimes, because our communities are a little turned off by the medical profession, they rather go to their personal doctors than the doctors on the school campus, because now you're in my business. I'd rather go to my own dentist. And so we have 36 schools throughout the state, by the way. And I don't know this, Ms. Henson, that the Florida legislature has been funding community partnership schools for several years, for at least about 7 years.
Okay.
We just got about $11.5 million from the Florida legislature for our model. And we have a planning grant right now that is available. You'll go to the UCF website, and you'll see that we're actually taking proposals. We have 8 schools that we're planning on funding around the state. But right now, Howard Bishop just got certified this year. And yes, it's still, a lot of our schools still have some behavioral things, but UF is the university partner. Santa Fe College is the university or the college partner. We also have the Alachua County Health Department, that's the health partner. And of course, the Children's Home Society is the nonprofit. So all of our schools have at least 4 partners, and the models look different. For example, in Jefferson County, we have taken over the K through 12 school there, and you will see that partnership come off the ground in the planning phases. But the oldest school, or the first school, was Evans High School in Orlando. So if any of you all are familiar with Evans out of Orlando, they've been around for 10 years as a community partnership school. And, it's a good model and example. There's
So
several.
now that you have a model, can it be replicated around here?
Yes, it could be.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Rich, for that informative
Thank you,
information.
yeah.
As I stated before, we close out, Ms. Cherie Kelly is going to, from the city's cultural rec department, wanted to say a few words.
I'm from somewhere, right? So I just wanted to get up here just for a minute and first and foremost thank our panelists and for the partnership with the FAMU Alumni Association for convening this most important conversation and really elevating topics that are impacting youth in our communities. As I look out on the audience, I see so many familiar faces, and I know so many people that have a great passion for the work that we do to serve our youth and really want to make an impact. And it's conversations like this that are going to really help us to understand what the issues are and inspire us to say, how can I take what I've heard today and do something with that in my everyday life? So again, I thank you to our panelists for your leadership, your vision, your expertise, your knowledge, and dedication to our communities. With the City of Gainesville and our Youth Services Division, we are really focused on partnerships and taking a look at the ways in which we're serving the youth at the time in which we have them. We have athletics programs, we have educational programs, we have nature education programs. So there are ample opportunities to really holistically serve children while they're in our care, and that's the way that we want to move forward. Also taking a look at one very important issue that Boderick raised earlier was the gun violence issue, right? Education and gun violence go hand in hand, right? If we're not doing what we need to do with our kids in our education system, that unfortunately increases the likelihood that they will be a perpetrator or a victim of violence. And so really getting a hold of what we're doing in our education system can really change so many trajectories, not just their career paths, right? And so again, with the city, we are focused on these issues. I appreciate the conversation tonight, and we look forward to continued collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you once again for these unique, dynamic individuals. First and foremost, thank you for taking the time out this evening to spend just a few minutes with us to enthrall, become engaged, become enlightened, and more importantly, like I said, to become more knowledgeable of the things and the issues that are pertaining to the state of education currently, and how we can continue to make sure our kids, and I say our because it takes a village, it takes a whole village these days, to make sure that they're being successful but have the opportunity to be successful. That's what they were asking for, just the opportunity to be successful. So as we close, I want to thank Representative Henson, Mrs. McGraw, Mr. Peterson, Dr. Monroe, and Dr. Scott. So let's give them a final round of applause. I want to say thank you. Over in the next room, we have some refreshments and some things of the nature that can kind of fill your palate a little bit. Don't have nothing that has a bone in it. I'm going to tell you, it got no bone. It has a little meat. It has a little meat. It has a little flavor to it. So I ain't going to send you away because y'all don't come here. So, man, I had to sit here for about 2 hours hungry and such. But all in all, much love. I want to say a special shout out to Dr. Scott for the Education Equalizer Foundation. It's collaborating once again with the FAMU Alumni Alachua County chapter, as we're taking up some students up to FAMU next week for the fall preview to expose them to the opportunities to become a rapper. So this TSU Tiger, once again, she's going to be coming up there learning what it is about striking on the hill. But more seriously, it's all about the kids. I want to say thank you once again. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. Grab yourself.